Tonight, South Australia emerges from its dramatic COVID-19 lockdown. And Tunarama, the latest local event to fall victim to the pandemic.
From our 7 Spencer Golf studio, your nightly news with Letitia Wallace begins now.
Good evening. Regional businesses are counting the costs as South Australia wakes from its 3-day COVID slumber. Tens of thousands of dollars has been wiped from the economy, with tourism operators concerned it's damaged people's confidence to travel to the region.
It ended as quickly as it begun, Port Lincoln reopening after its hard lockdown.
Yeah, the bookings have been coming back through very, very slowly at the moment, but positive signs for what's to come, hopefully, particularly once the restrictions are lifted on December 1.
It's a much-needed boost in morale for dozens of businesses who were thrown into chaos last week. Despite it only lasting half the expected time, the damage was done.
One operator told me that he took a booking cancellation worth $10,000 to him. That's just one booking, so that's huge.
The Port Lincoln hotel phones will ring off the hook. 300 cancellations in the first 6 hours following the announcement. Frenzied shoppers descending on supermarkets and bottle shops.
So it was pretty chaotic. We'd just shut down all the bars and the restaurants as well, emptied the kitchen and rearranged all the shifts, only to have that all reshuffled again on Saturday.
It's estimated the lockdown cost South Australia in excess of $50 million. While the state begins to relax its restrictions, regional travel is still not recommended. Tourism operators are concerned the advice will damage their reputation.
They're reluctant to book because they don't know if they're actually going to be able to travel. They're reluctant to book because they don't know if they'll get their money back if they have to cancel. They're reluctant to book in case they get here and discover they have to turn around and go back again.
To add insult to injury, operators are now having to compete against other states opening up their borders.
People will potentially choose to go elsewhere, so that's our challenge.
People are still sort of sitting tight, a bit of a holding pattern again we're seeing at the moment for travellers, not really sure whether they should go.
Some licensed venues say it's not even worthwhile to reopen.
The restrictions of only 100 per venue are very tough on a business the size that we are.
Nathan Richter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Nearly 48 hours on since South Australia's lockdown came to an end, many locals are once again enjoying the outdoors. Multiple restrictions still remain in place, however, with the Premier warning residents the state is still not out of the woods.
Breaking free from a 3-day lockdown, the Premier hailing it as successful in helping contain the spread of COVID-19.
Because of the action that we have taken, in conjunction with the great cooperation of the people of South Australia, that we have avoided this second wave, avoiding 100 cases per day by mid-December.
But South Australia's Chief Health Officer says there's still work to be done.
We do have one more case in South Australia to report, and this is a case indeed linked to the Parafield cluster, but fortunately this person has been in quarantine since early last week.
Currently, all premises are restricted to the 1 per 4 square metre rule. Religious ceremonies, restaurants, pubs and cafes can now have a 100-person limit, and table bookings cannot exceed 10. Funerals are capped at 50 people and weddings 150. Seated consumption is required at all venues and there is still no dancing. Beauty service staff and customers will have to wear a mask, and private gatherings are limited to 50 people. However, it's a 10-person limit at any private residence.
South Australia has risen to this challenge.
The South Australian Premier, Stephen Marshall, also says the government is aiming to lift restrictions by early December, just in time for Christmas. Sophia Contigonis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Families have hit the road to reunite with their loved ones in Broken Hill after New South Wales opened its border with Victoria. The state is now the only one without border restrictions, but authorities are warning against complacency.
A countdown almost 5 months in the making.
3, 2, 1.
Cars bumper to bumper crossing the Murray River as the border opened at 1 minute past midnight. For Broken Hill residents stuck in Victoria, it's been a long time coming. Megan Gander moved from Broken Hill to Bendigo after the first lockdown. She's driving today to see her family for the first time since June.
I'm pretty excited to see my mum and my brothers, so yeah, and the dogs, obviously the dogs, very excited for that.
She admits being in a new town during the second wave hasn't been easy.
it's been a bit tricky. I have hour-long phone calls with my family most other days.
It's been 4.5 months since New South Wales closed its border, with police and defence personnel manning 27 checkpoints around the clock since June. More than 14,000 officers have been deployed during that time. The Police Commissioner visited the checkpoint in Albury yesterday, thanking both sides of the border for their understanding.
Yes, the communities were frustrated, but they also understood that police and defence were here to protect them, and they were treated so well.
The Premier claims New South Wales is now the only state in the country without border restrictions. However, travellers from South Australia are still being told to complete travel declaration forms, even though the border remains open.
We are a free border community in New South Wales. All Australians are welcome to New South Wales. All New Zealanders are welcome to New South Wales without quarantine.
And for those families who have been kept apart, the Premier offered a shred of comfort.
We never want to see this ever again. We hope this is the last time that in our lifetime this border is closed.
This morning's event's the latest step towards normality. Lachlan Itter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Still to come tonight, students return to school after an enforced 2-day break, and Tunarama organisers pull the plug on next year's event. Welcome back. Police have thanked the general public for complying with COVID-19 restrictions after the state's lockdown was lifted early. With the situation constantly changing, they are encouraging the community to be alert and continue doing the right thing.
A shock lockdown lifted early. Police pleased with the public response and compliance following the easing of COVID-19 restrictions.
The restrictions were put in at very short notice and then obviously lifted again at very short notice. From our observation, the community handled things very well. Levels of compliance were excellent and we had no major problems as a result.
But it's not over yet, with a number of restrictions still in place.
The community have an awareness that there's a requirement to follow the health department directions, and if we all get on board and do what's required, there'll be less chance of having those lockdowns imposed for a longer period.
Meanwhile, Labor leader Peter Malinauskas says the lockdown could have been avoided. He wants international travel suspended, while also saying Medi hotels should be relocated to regional South Australia.
Because the current arrangement is not safe, it should be stopped and then a different solution put in place so as to minimise the risk of COVID-19 being spread into our community and another statewide lockdown.
The Premier and Chief Health Officer rejecting the call.
Quite frankly, find it disgusting that Peter Malinauskas thinks that South Australians returning from overseas or those returning from Victoria to do their quarantine should be put in a detention-style quarantine centre on Christmas Island or Woomera.
It also means we could potentially be co-locating this risk near Aboriginal communities, and that is really an unacceptable risk in my mind.
Katrina Musson, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Following a rollercoaster week, thousands of school students have stepped back into the classroom today to recommence the term. John Perry secondary school staff thanking pupils for their flexibility during an already stressful study period.
Students putting pens to paper once again following a chaotic week. After Wednesday's bell, John Perry students, along with every other school in the state, were told to study from home. Following a lift in restrictions over the weekend, pupils returned to school today.
To business as usual. I wouldn't say we're at 100% capacity, but yeah, there's a lot of students coming in this morning.
This deputy principal says many students were flexible during this time after going through a similar round of restrictions in March.
Straightforward, they were through it before at the beginning of the pandemic, so they were fairly tuned in.
The circuit breaker also impacting a highly anticipated school event with the Year 12 formal called off.
Definitely was disappointing for them, so it was something I think they were a bit prepared for, with just the inklings of something going on a few weeks before.
However, there's plans to reschedule it at a later date.
Hair and makeup shops, I'm sure, are going to be very accommodating to help them out if and when we're able to actually have the Year 12 formal.
There's only 3 more weeks left of Term 4 and both students and staff are looking forward to a lengthy summer break. They're being urged to adhere to social distancing measures as health authorities continue to fight against COVID-19 cases.
Everybody needs to be very responsible. We need to follow all the regulations and guidelines from the health department.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Golf News.
A 22-year-old Clare man has been charged with aggravated assault after allegedly spitting in the face of an officer while being arrested on Saturday night. Police allege they attempted to pull over the vehicle for hoon driving, but the vehicle continued to a local address. When approaching the driver, he allegedly became agitated and resisted arrest. He's bailed to appear in court in early December. For the first time in its history, Port Lincoln's famed Tunarama Festival has been cancelled, with next year's event the latest victim of the coronavirus pandemic. Organisers say it's a huge blow for the city's economy and the hundreds of people who rely on it for work.
One of the biggest festivals on Port Lincoln's calendar now cancelled.
It's a really sad and quite devastating decision to make.
Organisers pulling the pin on next year's Tunarama Festival, the first time the event's been axed in its history. The committee remained hopeful earlier in the year it would go ahead, but say the latest lockdown and border shutdown was the final nail in the coffin.
The restrictions may well be eased by January, but there's no guarantee that this won't happen again.
Probably being very cautious, and in this climate it's wise to be.
The festival injects more than $3 million into the local economy each year and supports more than 800 people with work.
It's not something that we wanted to do.
Officials will use the time to prepare for a bigger and better festival in 2022, marking 60 years of the iconic event.
Definitely aiming that. In January we start working towards 2022 and we hope that we'll be able to have a full festival in 2022.
Despite no festival, it's hoped some small market stalls will be able to go ahead on the foreshore under strict conditions. Nathan Rector, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us. Our Skies put on an unforgettable weather show and we'll have all the action from the latest round of Broken Hill cricket. The sky turned red for most of the upper Spencer Gulf last night, with the region experiencing some wild weather conditions. Amateur and professional photographers taking advantage of the opportunity, capturing the colourful sky show.
It's been called the burning sky. This fiery sunset covering much of the Spencer Gulf yesterday afternoon. Abby Mansell capturing the moment, taking these photos at Wyalla's beach. The bright sky turning the Spencer Gulf a shade of orange.
Mid and high level cloud, as we saw over the north of Spencer Gulf yesterday evening, can lead to some really spectacular sunsets as the sun's rays reflect off the base of the clouds.
And after the red skies came a dazzling lightning show. This video captured by Rizzo Wladyslaw. Greg Sketcher capturing this snapshot at the Whyalla jetty. Whyalla resident Luke Bindi also snapping this lightning strike. This before and after photo taken by local Carolyn Kittle shows the blue skies changing within a matter of hours, while Deirdre Lehman's picture gives the illusion the tree is on fire. Strong winds also causing havoc with trees and branches crashing down, and there's more to come later this week.
Peaking on Friday and Saturday with temperatures very likely to exceed 40 degrees.
Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Mid-North residents are breathing a sigh of relief with a notorious stretch of the Augusta Highway between Red Hill and Snowtown to receive a much-needed upgrade. It's part of a $250 million maintenance program aimed at improving road safety.
An infamous road set for some much-needed improvements. With more cars than ever on the Augusta Highway, safety concerns are growing.
The Augusta Highway between Red Hill and also Snowtown, there's probably about 15 kilometres just outside on the south side of Red Hill, is an absolute disgrace, and the undulating road there is up and down all the time.
After years of lobbying, the member for Forum has secured funding for an upgrade.
In a car, it's bad enough, but if you're in a truck, it's just an absolute nightmare. And on that road itself, if you're on a stretch on the back of an ambulance, you are getting a very, very tough ride.
The REA says the project is long overdue.
The Augusta Highway's been one of our, I suppose, key projects that we've been lobbying for a number of years, both at a federal and a state level as well, to see increased levels of investment.
They're now calling for the roadworks to be fast-tracked ahead of busy summer months.
Is really important too, and that should happen as soon as possible.
But certainly I want this road done very, very quickly and to make certain the other sections of the Augusta Highway that are deteriorating are rectified also.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Blood lead levels in Port Pirie's 2-year-olds has risen according to the state government's annual report. They're averaging 6.6 micrograms per decilitre of blood, up from 6.5 in 2019. The increase comes despite new technology at the local smelter, which was built to reduce emissions. The Environmental Protection Authority also recorded an increase in lead in air levels compared to last year. Turning to sport now, and while COVID restrictions caused the cancellation of local cricket across South Australia, play went ahead across the border in Broken Hill. Here's Lachlan Ita with this week's Cricket Wrap.
It was North taking on Central at Alma Oval, albeit in a shortened format, as the temperature climbed above 40 degrees. Central won the toss and chose to bat, hoping for a strong performance to gain precious points against the ladder leader. Tristan Smith and Jared Paul were the top batsmen for Central, making 36 runs between them. But aside from a few sixes, highlights were few as wickets fell thick and fast. Central all out for 84, spending just over an hour at the crease. Sheldon Hall and Jordan Vella opened for North. Hall, the top scorer for his side, getting 25 under his belt before being bowled by O'Malley. North taking the points with 5 wickets and 4 overs to spare. In the round's other game, West and South met at Jubilee Oval. The home team batted first, ending up 4 for 123 off their 20 overs, with South falling 41 runs short in reply. It's expected local cricket in SA will resume from the 1st of December.
Stay with us. After the break, we meet the Emu keen to explore Broken Hill, and Alex Sykes will have the latest weather details. Hello again. It can be hard to motivate kids to go to school, but this eager emu was so keen it tried to go to class on a weekend. A driver pulling over to capture the amusing sight near Broken Hill Public School, the bird even doing the right thing and using the school crossing. Eventually it worked out school wasn't open and went for a stroll around town instead. Time to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Alex Sykes.
Thanks, Letitia. Temperatures were mainly mild across the region today, with generally cloudy conditions and a few scattered showers in the south. From 3 p.m. today, Port Augusta was mainly sunny with a top of 24. It was windy in Whyalla and 23. Port Lincoln overcast with a high of 21. Cooper Pedy had the region's top temperature of 30 degrees. Broken Hill a degree cooler with 29. Woodner had a maximum of 27, and Kadina, Port Lincoln and Adelaide all had 21 degrees. Taking a look at the satellite image now, and cloud crossing the far north with a trough is not generating any rain. Low cloud along the coast with onshore southerly winds is bringing the odd light shower in the southeast. Skies are clear elsewhere under a broad area of high pressure. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Gusty south to southwesterly winds are expected, reaching up to 25 knots in the afternoon. Seas will rise between 1 and 2 metres, with south to southwesterly swells around 1 metre. It'll be mostly sunny and mild to warm throughout the region tomorrow. Port Lincoln 21, 25 for Cleve, 31 for Woodner. Whyalla will be mainly fine and 25. Port Augusta 29 degrees, Kadina 26. Port Pirie will have clear skies and 27. Clare 25 degrees and Broken Hill 28. Taking a look further through the week now, temperatures will continue to warm up on Wednesday with sunny conditions across the region. 36 for Cooper Pedy, tops of 37 in Port Augusta and Woodner. Port Pirie will have a top of 35, 30 degrees in Port Lincoln. Those hot, sunny conditions will persist into Thursday. 39 in Cooper Pedy, tops of 40 degrees for Port Augusta and Woodner, 37 for Port Pirie and Broken Hill. And even hotter conditions are forecast for Friday. A top of 41 for Cooper Pedy, 43 in Port Augusta and Woodner, 39 for Whyalla. So Letitia, we can expect a very warm and sunny week ahead as temperatures look to be increasing in the lead up to the weekend. That's all the weather from me tonight. Back to you.
Thanks, Alex. And that's the local news this Monday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later and we'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.